Ticks have become a fact of life in the North Country, and that means so have the worries about getting Lyme disease. But as we re-enter the outdoors of spring and summer again, some good news. There's progress on better treating Lyme, and there are ways to be outside in the grasses, in the woods, and be protected. A tick expert has some very useful tips on today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Essex County Arts Council, promoting arts and culture through advocacy and grants to artists and organizations. More at EssexCountyArts.org.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Friday, May 19th. First up, a Washington County grand jury this week indicted a Hebron man who's accused of shooting and killing a 20-year-old Schuylerville woman last month. 65-year-old Kevin Monahan allegedly shot Kaylin Gillis after the car she was in was leaving his driveway. According to the Glens Falls Post-Star, Monahan's been held at the Warren County Jail without bail since Gillis's death on April 15th. The paper posted a video of her father, Andrew Gillis, speaking to the media after Monahan was again denied bail earlier this week. At times, Gillis had to pause and take deep breaths, holding back tears.
She had hopes and dreams of becoming a marine biologist or a veterinarian. She loved animals. And this man took that away from us.
The night of the shooting, Gillis and 3 of her friends got lost looking for a friend's house in Washington County. They drove down the wrong driveway, stayed in their car, and turned around. Authorities say that's when Monahan came out of his house and fired a shotgun twice, striking the vehicle once. Gillis's friends drove a few miles away where there was cell service and called the police. She ultimately died of her injuries. Andrew Gillis said he's confident in the justice system and that his daughter deserves justice.
Kaylin's 2 younger sisters, Lily and Maddie, are going to have to grow up without their older sister. My wife, Angel, is going to have to go through the rest of her life without her baby girl.
Monahan faces the charge of second-degree murder in Gillis's death. The grand jury also indicted him on reckless endangerment and tampering with physical evidence charges. St. Lawrence Health and nurses at its 3 St. Lawrence County hospitals have agreed on new contracts. Kara Chapman has more.
Nurses at Messina, Canton Potsdam, and Governor hospitals reached tentative agreements with the health system on May 10th. This week, they overwhelmingly approved the new contracts, with unanimous votes from Messina and Governor's nurses. Megan Pupor, an operating room nurse at Messina Hospital, says it felt like a breath of fresh air.
We finally did it. We finally saw the finish line out of all of the hard work that we've been doing since the fall time,
According to the New York State Nurses Association Union, which represents the nurses, the new 5-year contract increases salaries and lowers health insurance costs. St. Lawrence Health says it also ensures pay parity across all its hospitals and increased pay for evening, weekend, and on-call shifts. During the months-long collective bargaining process, safe staffing was a big sticking point. A nurse at Messina Hospital previously told NCPR that she didn't believe SLH was adhering to staffing ratios it had agreed to with New York State. SLH already has a safe staffing committee made up of employees and management. Pupor says the nurse's new contract requires the group to meet quarterly instead of just once a year.
We're hoping that with the language that we now have in the contract, that management will be listening to us and taking our advice on things and the way that staffing should be at our facility.
In a statement, SLH President Donna McGregor said agreeing on a 5-year contract was a, quote, unprecedented accomplishment. She said the goal from the beginning was to reach an agreement that, quote, ensures all patients receive the best possible care and nurses are treated fairly and can do their best work. Pupor says there's still work to do on safe staffing, but she's happy for victories on pay parity and health insurance. Even though she's a lifelong Messina resident, she had considered switching to travel nursing for better pay and benefits, but she kept thinking about how much she loves the community and the people she works with.
And I just didn't want to have to leave, and this contract saved that. And I think that management is finally starting to invest in nurses, which I'm hoping will help with the staffing problem.
Pupor says the contract will help not just with retention, but also recruitment of new nurses. She says that means SLH could grow in a good way, and the nurses want that as well. Kara Chapman, North Country Public Radio.
May and June are the most common months for ticks to be active in the North Country. Our Adirondack reporter Emily Russell spoke with Brian Ledette, a professor who studies ticks and tick-borne disease at SUNY ESF in Syracuse, about what to look out for and how to avoid ticks on your body.
Weakness, fever. We think about Lyme disease and everybody's like, oh, the bullseye rash, right? What's the bullseye rash? Well, usually it's not even a bullseye rash. It's just this red expanding rash. And a lot of times people don't even see it. So I like to get people to think less about that specific symptom, because people be like, well, I didn't have a rash. It's like, well, you still got Lyme disease, right? So to think about these general just feeling unwell after being in a ticky area, that's their best bet. And then going to the physician and talking about that with the physician, and hopefully the physician is aware and can then use that as differentials to try to figure out what is going on in an individual's case.
Is there anything that keeps you up at night when it comes to ticks and the diseases they spread?
You know what keeps me up at night? Well, my kids. I'm terrified that my kids will get bit, and I've had a couple encounters in the yard, and I think about, one thing when you hear about Lyme disease, you hear about chronic Lyme disease or something known as post-treatment Lyme disease syndrome, and it's a real thing. We don't know what's causing it. There's probably a lot multifactorial causes towards it. Science is working on it, but what we do know is that people that get Lyme disease, 10 to 15% of them have persistent symptoms, similar to long COVID, right? And I think about my children, because if you look at Lyme disease cases, there's two major groups of people that get Lyme disease: children from 5 to 10 and older adults from 65 and up. And I don't want my child to get Lyme disease and live for the rest of their life with persistent symptoms. That's not cool, right? So that keeps me up at night. So I try to do my best to obviously protect my family, but protect my 5-year-old and my 2-year-old from getting bit.
How do you balance getting outside, enjoying nature, and protecting yourself and your family against ticks?
I love going outside. I'm outside all the time and I don't get ticks. So prevention means are very effective. I think in the past probably 5 years, I've been at tick sites working, and I've been bitten by one tick, and I noticed it within 24 hours. It was a nymphal black-legged tick. I was terrified. I called my friend who's an infectious disease doctor, and I got prescribed antibiotics because I was terrified, because I knew that it probably was carrying the Lyme pathogen. So what do? Well, we are tick aware, right? My children know about ticks. I'm going to my kid's classroom in a couple of weeks to teach his kindergarten class about ticks. Very basic things: how to identify a tick, where they are, how to protect yourself. And how do you protect yourself? That's the biggest thing, right? One thing I'm really vigilant at is using permethrin, which is a parasite. It kills the tick. If it doesn't repel, it kills the tick. It's a spray that you can buy at any sports store or any large department store. And it doesn't go on your skin, so follow instructions when you're applying this. You apply it to your clothes, and once it dries, it can sit there for a couple laundry cycles, and it's really good at killing ticks when they try to attach to you. When we're out there in an area where there's a lot of ticks, or in habitat where I know there are a lot of ticks, I will tuck my pants into my socks. And people say, why do you do that? Well, it's because, again, going back to this idea, ticks don't fly, they don't fall off trees, they don't drop from branches, they're on little twigs and grasses, and they attach to your socks, your pants, and they climb upward. And then obviously afterwards, even when you do all that, I still do tick checks. I'm always checking myself. I tell people I know every mole on my body, and when something's new, it's a tick. How do you get the tick off? Well, you don't burn it. You don't put Vaseline on it. You just take fine tip tweezers, grab right at the base of the skin, and just pull directly out in slow motion. They'll pop out. As long as you get the majority of it out as soon as possible, within 24 hours, you really decrease your likelihood of disease transmission. And then I tell people to ultimately save that tick, because if you do get sick, go to the doctor with it and say, hey, doc, look, I a week ago we were out hiking, at the Notch in Wilmington, and, we found this tick on my kid. I took it off. Now they're acting ill. That may help the doctor make a diagnosis for you or a loved one.
That was SUNY ESF professor Brian Ledette speaking with Emily Russell. You can find more information about ticks at cdc.gov. There's also a documentary about Lyme disease screening this weekend in Glens Falls. The Quiet Epidemic will be shown at 2 p.m. on Sunday at the Wood Theater downtown, followed by a panel discussion with the filmmakers. We have more news all the time and through the weekend on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by Eric Pasternak of Bloomingdale and Ramon Vasquez and Michael Hart of Malone. I'm David Sommerstein, North Country Public Radio.